Hi, my name is Lisa Bros, and I'm a board member of Rabun Youth Educational Support, also called Rabun Yes. And this is a guide to transitioning to homeschooling in Georgia. I am a teacher. I began my certification in 1996 as a special ed teacher in varying exceptionalities, certified K through 12. Now I'm working on my master's as a learning specialist with focus on accommodations and modifications. And we thought as a nonprofit group, Ribbon Yes, that the community and our friends and contributors to Ribbon Yes would benefit from a guide to transitioning to homeschool. Whatever your reasons for choosing homeschool, you need to work towards supporting your learner in their education. Not all students, not all children, not all parents should be homeschooled. We have an older daughter who's now in college, and there is no way that we would have ever chosen homeschooling for her. However, for my son, it is working out wonderfully. He's been homeschooled now for 4 years. The local private and public schools are absolutely amazing, but it just wasn't working out for us, so we decided to try something different. Homeschooling looks completely different from household to household. There's many different types of programs, as you can see below, for homeschooling, many different methodology. We try to do a combination of these. I had never heard of unschooling, as noted below, before we started homeschooling. It is a child-led program. You follow their interests, their leads, and look it up. Unschooling was not for us, but it is for some. Online schools, online virtual schools, there's a couple that are supported by the state of Georgia. There's some you have to pay for. Charlotte Mason, where you use a little bit less textbooks than a traditional classroom and focus more on trips and experiences for learning. There's unit studies, Waldorf, Montessori. There's so many out there. Initially, when we decided to choose homeschooling, we were absolutely terrified, or I was specifically terrified of doing it. Having the responsibilities of an entire school worth of resources put on me, the obligation to provide for our son for that, was terrifying. Now that I've done it for a little while, now through the benefit of experience, it is definitely something that I shouldn't have been scared to do. It is manageable, and I'm going to show you how we went through it. I started by going to the Georgia state standards. Let me share the screen for you, lead you through the Georgia state standards. Every state has a list of state standards that they use to provide the public schools, the private schools, responsibility for teaching the same things throughout the states. You can look here. There's one for every subject area. And if you pull it up, let's pull up science, for example, you can go through the grade level that your child or children are going into. Let's say, I'm going to choose 5 because I'm fairly familiar with it. Our son is in 8th grade now, so I'm pretty sure on this. You go through and you can see the Georgia state standards for 5th grade science, many samples, resources, how to pace it out. I like to go here to the instructional resources or to the content resources. Let's pull this up. This is a really good one-page guide on what you need to include for specifically science for 5th grade and what you need to cover. It goes through every single aspect of it. We don't do the state standards in that order, but this provides me for what I want to make sure I include in his education so that if down the line we decide not to homeschool, that he can seamlessly go back into the public or private school system, not have missed a beat, had learned what his peers were learning in that grade level, and actually having this as a structure was a tremendous resource for me. And like I showed you, they have state standards for every subject area. Now what I want to do though is go through, now that you know, you can look up, you know where to go for the what you're going to teach. We're going to go through a little bit how to teach it. So let me go back to our PowerPoint and run that with you. Okay. Language arts. Let's start with language arts. Using the state standards, we determine what we have to teach. And it's not that hard to teach it, I find, with language arts by tweaking a little bit of our life to make sure that we incorporate the curriculum, language arts curriculum, into our everyday activities. For example, the grocery list, writing out a grocery list, practice handwriting skills, working on thank you notes, so on and so forth. Because homeschool can adjust to the challenge of the student, no matter the age, it is very easy to increase the level for your child to make sure that they are challenged, or bring it down a little in case they're not as skilled in spelling words or reading. I find that this website here, homespellingwords.com, is a wonderful resource for spelling words. We do a pre-test on Monday, and any words that he gets incorrect from the list of 25 become his words for the week. There's no reason for him to have to redo words that he already got right on Monday and knew already. It's just redundant for me. Then we went up, so we always go up 2 grade levels with him for spelling words to make sure that he's challenged. And then if we find that he got all the week's words right, he doesn't have words that week. That's his reward for working hard. Through research and recommendation from one of my friends, Chris, we found this program that works wonderful for us, and is the image below of his language arts program, different colored books for different grade levels, and it uses classical literature as content that is age appropriate while still challenging his high reading level. We read books such as Sign of the Beaver, The Boxcar Children, and practice corresponding, dictation skills, comprehension, research, and parts of speech through this program. By using classical literature, we find that he's challenged while it's still age appropriate, because we don't want to move up to high school level reading when he's not at that. He can't handle the content of a high school reading book, but we still want him challenged. That's a very hard thing to figure out. Also, likewise, if your child is reading lower, you're going to start struggling with finding things that they are interested in reading that aren't too hard for them. Classical literature, I think, provides a lot of that for our students. Next, we have science curriculum. I love science. That's one of my favorite things to do. Science naturally lends itself to being hands-on, so we don't actually use one curriculum. We use the state standards, figure out what he needs to learn. And below is an example of 5th grade. This is what has to be covered in 5th grade, as we looked at before. And then we use various resources to fulfill that. The original Bill Nye videos that he made eons ago are wonderful for teaching topics. Then I'll get back to the milk chemistry in a minute, but Generation Genius, huge, huge asset to me. The Rabun County Library would check out books, and if you look right here, if I move my image real quick, let's see, the Who Was book series is great for then bridging over to language arts. So the book he's reading on his own for language arts is also following through with our curriculum for science. Now, the MEL chemistry is a little spendy. I think it's about $30 a month, and I get every resource I could possibly need for teaching chemistry. So each month a box comes, it's on a specific topic, and every chemical is in there, every wire, everything. They have instructional cards that you can use, or you can go online and use the step-by-step guide. Then they provide resources for it. One of the wonderful things when you're doing any sort of an experiment with your child is to have them experience the experiment for the first time, just for fun, enjoy it, see what they observe, then learn about the subject that it covers, learn about the topic that you're trying to teach them about through the experiment. Then at the end, we have them redo the experiment and teach it to somebody. What did they learn? Why did this go like this? And be able to answer the questions. Because once you can teach something to somebody, that shows a true knowledge of that area. Math. Math scares a lot of people, but it's actually not that hard. Let me move myself over. Let's see. Okay. This is a really good chart, comparison chart to different math programs. There's the textbooks, the math you see. So I'm not going to read it to you. You can see it there. And you can choose one based on your child's learning style and how much time that you want to devote to math each day. You can start with the type of learner, like I said. We have settled on the Singapore program. It works well for us. We previewed some of the math books, and they worked wonderful for us. We chose the Math in Focus books. We purchased them from Amazon, christianbooks.com, which I highly recommend for purchasing homeschool books, and eBay. Any program will cover areas where your child needs more or less instruction. You can print up practice sheets. So if you find that, let's say the Math UC program went too fast and your child didn't grasp the concept, you can definitely print worksheets to follow up on it. Likewise, you can go to the IXL program and give them additional practice. So long division or something like that they're not getting, provide more instruction on it. Spend an extra week, an extra 2 weeks on it, spend a month on it. Then you can move on. That is a wonderful thing about homeschooling that you can do. And I put the website here for the math curriculum program. History. History, let's say for the third grade to 5th grade, they're going to cover U.S. history. They start with Native Americans and go all the way to 9/11. 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. That's what I learned through looking at the Georgia State Standards. So you can use the same textbooks for all those grades. Also, when the school system does learn about all those time periods, you can start wherever you want. Now, we didn't start with Native Americans. We started with Pangea, when all the continents were together in one big bunch. Because how did those Native Americans get there? They didn't just appear out of nothing and appear in the U.S. before there was the U.S., obviously, as Native Americans. They came from someplace before that, and that's when it was Pangea. So that's where we started. You can fill in any holes like that that you see through homeschooling, through the curriculum, and focus on what you feel is the most important. Start looking up textbooks with the curriculum. Any text can be used as a jumping off point and then enhanced from there. Junior reader literature, such as Rush Revere, and hands-on project, making timelines with history, with drawings, building replicas, all of that can enhance the program. With a few quick clicks, I found this program that you see the image here, and it was only $50. And for using it for 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, that's a great price. It gave you the teacher resource book, the student book, the DVD that went along with it. And then if you actually go to the publisher, which is Lenco, you can pull up additional resources for this textbook to print. $50, done. So it doesn't have to be that expensive with a little bit of time and creativity. Adding in art and music is not that hard either. I don't do a separate art and music program. You could. I take art and music and infuse it into the other subject areas that they're learning about. That's the unit studies aspect we talked about previously. These are some examples that we've done. We were talking about Manifest Destiny, so we pulled up John Gasp's Manifest Destiny painting called American Progress. And we talked about it. We discussed what aspects of it were part of the Western expansion. We talked about the positive and negatives in the painting. Then we also had, he painted something of his own, what he thought it looked like. And he did actually the inside of a covered wagon. What he researched it, found what goes into a covered wagon, and did a painting of the inside of a covered wagon. So bridging the curriculum, bridging to different subject areas in your curriculum. We also were studying China this past year. So he started learning about Chinese writing. And we pulled up a tutorial on YouTube that was free on how to start writing Chinese characters. We also, for music, pulled in some of Beethoven when we were studying about Austria and Beethoven's life. We got a make your own music box kit and started transcribing music to this music box and then making some of our own. Not that difficult, took a little time and research to make it happen. This is a typical schedule for us for our homeschooling. One of the wonderful things about the homeschooling day is that you can choose how much or how little you want to do. You meet your state standards, then you can run from there. We are only educating 1 or 2 children in our home. Maybe you have more children than that, but with not having a whole classroom, you're going to find that you go pretty quick through the state standards. Then you can run with whatever interests your child or whatever you feel is important. The public schools, and let me get the information right here, the public schools are only responsible for educating our children in an instructional method for a short time during the day because they have passing period, they have outside recess. So the Georgia Department of Education requires 4.5 hours of instruction each day for grades 1 through 5. Grades 4 through 5, they require 5 hours of education a day, instruction. And then grades 6 through 12, 5.5 a day. Any time spent on basic academics plus art, PE, technology, and music count as instructional time. Their instructional time, then those, let's say, 4.5 hours a day that they are in charge of instruction get broken up even further because they get interrupted by announcements. Somebody has a nosebleed. There's an ambulance going by and everybody's distracted. So even with that 4.5 hours a day of instruction, they're not going to be constantly learning 4.5 hours. So don't feel like you have to keep your kid learning from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. You don't have to. You can cover things in a relatively short span of time. You can start whenever you want. We have a son who is growing like a weed and he's sleeping. He'll sleep till about 10 o'clock in the morning, and that's okay. He's still going to get these things done. You have something coming up that you can't actually instruct as much on a day, put in things that they can do more independent. Know that ahead of time. Plan. Organization is key for us to not be frazzled in our homeschooling. We treat this as our son's job. He's responsible for the job. He has to get it done and done well. And he has natural consequences that he knows to anticipate if he doesn't get his job done, just like as if he was in a job outside of the house. So let's look at the schedule for a minute. We already talked about English. The spelling, we do dictation. Dictation is something I feel like kids aren't learning a lot of today, and I see that as a gap that needs to be filled, so we do that. We do dictation on Monday for English, and on Fridays the spelling test. We practice in between. The workbook you saw before, and then on Thursday, it's going to be included in science. I don't need to do a separate English assignment because it's going to be included into a science as you see below. We have 2 books going at any one time. We have one where I read, that says you read on it, because this is from his point of view. We're reading Tom Sawyer. Then he reads alone independently a chapter a day. We do the male science on Monday. We do the diffusion experiment, and then he's going to be doing a teaching of it, most likely on the Monday for this lesson. We didn't get to it Friday because it had too many things to do. Then math, his textbook, and you can see that I put down some independent things on there. So if he's starting his day later on, he knows what he can do independently of me and not be waiting for me to start. Because I'm not going to be sitting around for him, waiting for him to start the school day. I have other things that I have to do, and he needs to get started on his own and know what he can do. Likewise, if he doesn't get started till later in the day at 9 at night, he still has work that he needs to fulfill for the day. He better make sure that he pays attention to me and when I can fit in naturally time to work with him for homeschool. The history is fairly simple on there, and we talked about the Hanzi writing as working in the art skills into his science curriculum, and his spelling words at the bottom of the page. There are so many Rabun County resources that I was not initially aware of to support the homeschooler. If you isolate yourself from everybody, you're going to have a really hard time homeschooling, as is your child. A lot of people think that homeschoolers are socially awkward. I've actually found the exact opposite than that. There's the Rabun County Homeschool Parents Group. If you look it up on Facebook, you'll find it. We will get back into our regular Monday each month meetings, but because of Corona, we weren't able to do that. The library and Miss Kim are a wonderful resource for us. There's also a less local group where I've asked many questions, and due to the anonymity of a Facebook group, you don't feel like somebody's going to be going, what, you don't know that? If you ask it to this group, that seems to help me a lot. Sometimes I feel like my questions are dumb, even though I've always heard there are no dumb questions. Once in a while, there kind of are. There's the Blue Ridge Outdoor Education Center. It does cost money to register for their classes. You can find them on the internet. We did an all-day class there with actual rangers and botanists and outdoor experts, and it was a great day for immersive outdoor science. There's also the Forest School, which is free, and it's a national program, maybe international, I'm not sure, but you can look them up, and the link is down there. In 2000, the Discovery Institute conducted a study in which trained counselors found homeschooled children to not only be well-adjusted, but also to exhibit fewer behavioral problems than traditional school peers. Homeschoolers are self-disciplined, motivated, responsible for their study. This is one of the things that I was saying earlier. These children need to learn to manage their time. They need to be able to take cues from you when you're available, when you're not. And they're responsible for their own learning for the most part. And that skill is something that a lot of students lack. Being told, now you do this, now you do this, now you do that, does not make them responsible individuals for their own learning. Homeschoolers tend to be more responsible like that and know how to pace themselves, know to make lists of what they need to do or questions they need to ask when you get off the phone. You can work it into your own schedule and environment, and that is a huge plus if you want to go RVing or go out and bring them with you when you're on a work trip. You can incorporate that into their learning And then they have very little restriction. You don't have to pay attention to the public school schedule. However, our son, actually, when we were considering doing this, he said he wanted to follow the public school schedule of his friends. So if the public schools locally have a day off, he has the day off. If they have a snow day, he didn't want to be gypped, and he has a snow day. So he was smart enough to work that into his schedule, and we've continued doing that for 4 years now. Homeschoolers can also take part in sports through the rec center, scouting, church activities. There's so many things for them to interact with each other. Anybody who says their child is a homeschooler is socially isolated is not looking for activities for them to be with their peers. Our son is in scouts. He is active in the church. He goes out on homeschool activities, like I was saying before, the Facebook group for Rabun County. There's so many opportunities for him to be with his peers. And then, of course, he gets on this Xbox and talks to his peers on Xbox. The state of Georgia, and this is a quote from their website, the Georgia Department of Education has a very limited role related to homeschool. The Georgia Department of Education is only responsible for maintaining the Declaration of Intent records. Now, legally, in order to homeschool, you go to the website below and you fill out and submit your letter of intent. It's just a couple of things you have to fill out. And then I printed a copy of this, brought it with me, and withdrew him from the public schools. Also, the state of Georgia says you must take a standardized exam, does not say what standardized exam, every 3 years at the beginning, once they are at the end of the 3rd grade year. That test that you take, actually, I found out was a bigger resource to me than anything else, so that I knew where he was at, where my holes were in his education, where he's far advanced from what I was teaching him and might not be challenging him enough. I actually plan on doing it not every 3 years. I plan on doing it every 2 years. And on the different parent resource websites, especially the Rabun County parent homeschoolers, is we share with each other the resources like that and other opportunities for standardized exams. There's a fabulous woman that came to Macon County, and we hired her to do his standardized exams at the library there. Fantastic job she did. Then also the instructor shall write an annual progress assessment report in each required subject area for each student and retain them for 3 years. So that would be you as their teacher writing this annual progress report, and that's all the state requires of you. You don't have to submit results anywhere. The standardized exam lives in your file cabinet. It doesn't get submitted. There's no proof, no documentation. Some states are very loose with their restrictions, their role. The state role is set above for homeschoolers. Some are not as strict. Texas, I believe, is one of the loosest states as far as what they require from homeschoolers. You don't even have to prove that you have a high school diploma, I believe, in Texas. If you have any questions or need any additional support, you can email me. You can go on the Facebook page and join our group. Rabun Yes is funding this presentation. You're finding it on their website. They provide educational services and support to local youth while in collaboration with other tax-exempt organizations, and they are based in Rabun County, Georgia. I hope you are finding this very helpful. I hope you are learning to love learning and teaching your child to love learning. And we are here for you, and good luck on your adventures in trying homeschooling.